welcome back, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about some of the common gardening myths and mistakes that are wasting you time and money in the garden. And before we get started, I'd just like to make sure that you've gone down below, hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon to make sure you're notified next time I upload a video. So the first myth that I'm going to talk to you about that's wasting your money especially is buying specific seed starting compost as opposed to just multi-purpose compost. And in this pot here I've got some, and this is a peat-free compost, and it's really fine and really good for seed starting. And I know some other composts are quite lumpy, but what you need to do to save money is you buy normal multi-purpose compost, which is cheaper than seed starting compost, and you buy a soil sieve if you haven't got one already, and you just sieve it. And I'll link to a good soil sieve down in the description below. And you just sieve it and you get a fine sort of tilthy compost, perfect for starting seeds. And this is basically what the compost companies do, is they just sieve their seeds, their multi-purpose compost blend to make a seed starting blend, which is just the same as the multi-purpose most of the time. I know there is some exceptions, but most of the time it's the same, just sieved. So save your money and just get multi-purpose, which is cheap and readily available, and sieve this with a soil sieve. As I said, that'll be linked down below, a good soil sieve. And the second myth is one that really annoys me, and what this is specific feeds for specific plants. So for example, you might see in a supermarket or something, Dahlia feed. I wouldn't buy these because my thought is that for flowering and fruiting plants, so for example maybe tomatoes, peppers, or flowering things like dahlias, the good feed for that is a tomato feed. An all-round feed, I believe, is a tomato feed, and that's what I use on most of my flowering and fruiting plants. And if there's something that has more foliage or you need more sort of green growth on it, then you use a nitrogen feed like your homemade nettle feed. And that's why the ones from the shops that are specific feeds are a bit of a waste of time. And I think that you should save your money and spend it on a good tomato feed like a seaweed feed, or just spend your time making some nettle tea. Not nettle tea to drink, as in nettle fertiliser. So the third myth that I'm going to talk to you about is actually to do with coffee grounds, and some people say that coffee grounds makes the ground or the compost too acidic, and this I believe is wrong, because once the water's passed through the coffee grounds, as long as they're used coffee grounds, that you've drunk the coffee from them, then they'll be fine, because once you've used it, all the acidity is in the drink and it's not much left in the coffee grounds. They're mainly just neutral after that. So you can use them along your beds, or if you want to neutralise it, if that is a worry of yours, you can mix it with some wood ash or some barbecue ash, because this will sort of neutralise it a little bit. You can also use it just straight in compost, and once it's broken down it'll be neutral, just like most things. Another thing with coffee grounds is that they can deter slugs. So if you put rings of it around your plants, the slugs probably won't like going to those plants. So if you've got a problem with slugs or pests, just put a ring of coffee grounds around it, and this should protect your plants. Another myth, which I've actually done myself, and a mistake I've made myself, is when you prune fruit trees, some people like to cover them up with like a pruning sort of tar, sticky liquid type thing. It's not really tar, the one I used. It was an organic one. But what it does is it seals it up, which will protect it from disease and infection. But what I do is I just cut it, because plants naturally heal themselves. If a branch snaps off, it'll heal itself. So you won't need to use any of these sort of liquids that you can buy, because they're a waste of time and money. And ours did work, and they do sometimes have antibiotic properties, so if there is an infection it could kill it. But most of the time, if you're just pruning, there's no need to heal it up. All you do is just cut it with a clean, sharp pair of secateurs, and that's the key, is to have a clean cut, and then the plant will heal itself perfectly. And lots of my fruit trees have got all these heals on them already, so I'll show you some of them now. So this here isn't actually a fruit tree, but it has healed itself. There. And that's it, the bark just grows quickly around where you've cut it and heals it perfectly, so there's no need to worry about buying these special things that heal plants. Another myth is that digging the soil aerates it and makes it better for growing plants. And this is probably the biggest myth that I've ever done. And this is no dig soil. As you can see, the subsurface is still light, and there's no need to worry about it being too compact, because being compact is when there's been lots of weight, such as cars going over it. If you've been stood on it or anything like that, it won't get too compact. And I have no problem with my no-dig soil. It is my first year, but still, if you want to see good no-dig results, look at Charles Dowding's channel, because he has a whole host of videos and comparisons between dig and no-dig soil. And I've had no problems with it. In fact, I've had better harvests this year because of being no-dig. And there's also less weeds, and I haven't had to water as much. And no-dig soil also has less erosion. So if you're in an area where it rains a lot, like in Wales, or where it's very windy, then you can stop desertification and weathering of your soil if you don't dig it. So if it's loose, if you think about it, when it's loose after digging it, it can easily be blown or washed away. Whereas if it's been in the same position for a while, there'll be lots of roots and lots of fungi and things all holding the soil together like a glue, so it'll stay where it is. And if you want to see some sort of first year soil, no-dig soil, and see what it's like, this is what it's like. So it's very dark, which is always a good sign because it's got a lot of organic matter in it, and it's also got a lot of water retention, and the plants love it. All my plants have never done any better in this garden. And the last myth is watering your garden every day. And this is a big mistake that I used to make, or I have only recently stopped doing. And when it's hot and dry, you think, oh no, my plants are going to wilt. But actually, you'll be surprised how long they can go without wilting. And a good video by Hugh Richards recently that really made me do this change is that having plants in distress makes them have a better root system. So if you let them just wilt and then give them a good dosing of water, is much better than watering little and often, because they'll get more roots in the surface than deeper. So what you should do is you should water a very deep sort of soaking of a water every sort of, it depends, with salad you should do it every day or every other day, and same with seedlings. But with things like, say, sort of kale, maybe, a mature kale plant, you should plant it maybe, water it maybe once a week in a really dry period, and just give it a really good soak. And that's the same with things like cabbage. But something that I do plant water quite often is my greenhouse with my peppers and tomatoes. But another approach, which is dry growing tomatoes, which Hugh also talked about, is where you sort of don't water them too much, but which gives them better flavoured fruit. But there's more about that on his video. But watch that after you've watched my video. This Taunton Deal kale. This is perennial kale plant, and I don't think I've watered this. I've watered it maybe twice this year because we had about 2 months of not much rain. And I think it wilted once in that period, and that shows that if you leave it, plants will find a way of making their roots bigger so that they don't get too dry and things like that. So they'll find nutrients, and that's the other thing with feeding. If you get a specific feed, you're giving the plant everything it needs without it having to try and find it. Whereas if you let it find it itself, the roots will find all the nutrients it needs in the soil, rather than just getting it all spoon-fed to it. This is actually my last one now. I know I said it on my last one, but this one is. And before, some people I've met and seen they don't believe in putting too much compost, or they don't put enough compost on their beds. And this is a big trouble, because I know I keep making this comparison, but putting compost on your beds is like eating porridge. It'll prolong the nutrients. Giving it a liquid feed is like eating a banana. It will sort of be used up really quickly. So whatever you do, just put lots of organic matter and compost and composted manure and composted wood chips onto your beds, because this will prolong it and it'll make plants in the years to come better, rather than just this year with the liquid feeds and all those specific feeds I was talking about earlier. Thank you for watching this video. I realise that everything's a bit hazy today, but I've got a lot of rain on my camera. So thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and if you enjoyed, please share with your friends. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.